Everybody, welcome back to another episode of Shifty's 49ers Talk. In this video, we're previewing the Week 14 matchup between the Tampa Bay Buccaneers coming to visit the San Francisco 49ers. We have Brady coming back home to the Bay Area, the GOAT, taking on Mr. Irrelevant Brock Purdy. There's a lot to talk about in this matchup, so let's not waste any time. Let's jump right in. In this Week 14 matchup, we have the Buccaneers, the 6-6 Tampa Bay Buccaneers, top of the NFC South, visiting the 8-4 49ers, top of the NFC West. Now, when we look at the lines that Vegas has put out for this, they have the Niners favored by 3.5 over the Buccaneers. Typically, how Vegas does these score spreads is that the home team is typically given about 3 points or so. So what Vegas is telling us is that it's a pretty darn close matchup, and I actually agree with it for the most part. They also have the over-under set at 37.5. That's the second lowest for this week in all of the NFL. Essentially, what they're saying is the combined score of the team will equal 37.5 or less. You have to basically bet over or under. Now, to me, that signifies, yes, a low-scoring game, and I have to agree with that. Both defenses are really, really good. Now, one thing before we start talking about the specifics of the video, I do want to say right now, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 2-3 on the road so far this year, so they have a losing record on the road. However, the San Francisco 49ers are actually 5-1 at home. That one loss, of course, coming to the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, coming up next, we're going to talk about some of the big notable injuries heading into this matchup. For the Buccaneers, we know they're missing some key names, guys who've been out for a couple of weeks. So Shaq, Barrett, the really, really good edge rusher, he's not playing. Tristan, Wirfs, the really, really good right tackle, he's not playing. But I think for more recent news, when you actually look at the Buccaneers, there's two starting safeties are both going to be out. That's Antoine Winfield Jr. and Mike Edwards. Now here's the thing, they actually have really solid backups in place. Guys who are veterans, they've been around the league, they know where to be, they know what to do, and that's going to be Logan Ryan and Keanu Neal. Now, really, besides that, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are relatively healthy, although running back Leonard Fournette was just added to the injury report. It's questionable whether he will play on Sunday. Now, moving on to the 49ers, of course, we know Garoppolo hurt. He's not playing probably for till playoff time at the earliest, if he plays again this year. Hassan, Ridgeway, he's pretty much done for the season too. Tarvarius Moore is going to miss a couple of games, but the big thing to show up on the injury report is actually Nick Bosa. Hasn't really practiced this week. Now, to me, I still think, there doesn't seem like a ton of concern around it, so I believe that Nick Bosa is going to go, and we are really, really going to need him this Sunday going up against the likes of Tom Brady. Now, coming up next, guys, what I want to talk to you and throw at you are some stats heading into this matchup. When we compare these teams, they're relatively similar. Both teams actually leaning on defense and doing just enough offensively to get those wins. Now, the 49ers, we have the number one defense in yards allowed per game. In terms of points per game, we are the best in the NFL. We're also number one in terms of run defense. We are not allowing teams to run on us, giving up about maybe 75, 76 yards per game, easily number one in the NFL. Compare that to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Their defense also really, really good. They're 8th in yards allowed per game and actually 5th in points per game. And that's such a key thing, and that's how they've been able to win some of these close games, because their offense, even with the likes of Brady, has been struggling. Their defense keeps them in the game, and that's really what they're going to want to do against the 49ers. We saw it on Monday Night Football against the Saints. They were able to just stay within 2 scores, and then bam, bam, touchdown, they win the game. Sounds a bit like 49ers recipe is basically play good defense, score just enough on offense. Now let's talk about the offensive numbers for both of these teams. Tampa Bay Buccaneers are 17th in yards per game, but actually only 27th in points per game, which is, of course, incredibly uncharacteristic of a Tom Brady-led offense, and they do have really good weapons. We're going to talk like Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Julio Jones. They have some good running backs too. But now if we compare their offense to the San Francisco 49ers offense, Niners are going to be 10th in yards per game and 13th in points per game. But this is going to be the first start for rookie Brock Purdy. So it's really, you look at these numbers, and not that you throw them out the window necessarily, but it's going to be a different look. We're having a rookie go out there. So to basically expect him to perform at the level the offense has done all season long against a good defense might be a little bit unrealistic. But something which could really help out Brock Purdy and could really help out the 49ers are going to be winning the turnover battle. So when we look at turnovers on the year, Niners are actually +4 in turnovers. They've caused four more turnovers than they've actually given up. That actually ranks number 5 in the NFL. And here's a big thing. The 49ers on a 5-game win streak. In those 5 games, we are +7 in the turnover battle. Now, when you look at Tampa Bay, they're actually even. They've had as many turnovers, takeaways as giveaways. And a big thing when it comes to Tampa Bay is they are not throwing interceptions. They're not really giving the ball away a lot, but they're also not taking it away all that much either. Tom Brady on the year, only 3 interceptions. Really, really impressive. We know that Brady usually and almost always will make the smart play, whether it's throwing it away, whether it's taking the sack. He doesn't turn the ball over, and that's really allowed the Buccaneers, despite a lot of things kind of going against them this year with injuries and things of that nature, that's allowed them to be 500 and number 1 in their division. Now, coming up next, guys, what I want to talk about are some of the key matchups in this game. The first matchup that I think we have to talk about is essentially going to be the San Francisco running game against the Tampa Bay run defense. Now, Tampa Bay have a lot of really good players in their front 7. Although they are only ranked number 18 in the NFL in terms of run defense, they just have some big time names right there. Of course, I think it starts on the defensive line with Vita Vea. Here's a guy who can absolutely disrupt and destroy offensive game plans. He's incredibly athletic, can take on 2 or 3 blockers, can even penetrate and get sacks himself, get into the backfield and just ruin plays. Not is he on the level of an Aaron Donald? No, but I don't think he's actually that far from it. The other big thing too is when you look at Tampa Bay, really, really good, solid veteran players. Their linebackers, Devin White, Levante David, these are some really good players at linebacker, and both of them very, very experienced. So there's not going to be a lot of looks, even that Kyle Shanahan can come up with, that they haven't seen before. So to me, what that screams is going to be basically playing incredibly sound fundamental football. Can't have those penalties. When we do create gaps with the offensive line and with our blocking, we have to be able to exploit it. So to me, I'm looking at Christian McCaffrey, I think like last week, and since he's been acquired, he's going to get the majority of the carries. We're going to lean on our veteran guy that when the offensive line does create holes, that he's the guy who's not going to be afraid to hit it, knows when to make the right play, knows when to get down. So I think Christian McCaffrey will lean on him heavily. However, that doesn't mean that we're not going to see Jordan Mason. I think Jordan Mason played really, really well last week against the Miami Dolphins. By far our best rusher in terms of yards per carry. And I think you'll see what we did last week. We'll probably see some more of that again this week. We're going to see him maybe a lot more in the 3rd quarter, in the 4th quarter, as the game is winding down, as it's getting into those critical moments. The defense is maybe a little bit tired. Then you bring in fresh legs, Jordan Mason, and he's very, very physical, runs with authority, very decisive. So I think he's someone that as the game is going on, we'll start seeing a lot more of him. Now, when it comes to this too, the other key thing is going to be controlling the clock. And that's something that the Niners were able to do against Miami. If you look at time of possession in that game, the Niners had the ball for 40 minutes. Dolphins only 20 minutes. Now that's of course incredibly unrealistic to go into a game expecting that, but of course you want to keep the ball out of Tom Brady's hands. You want to control the clock, get it to possession lead. That way Brady can't have his miraculous comeback. So what we're going to move on to next is we're going to talk about the 49ers pass rush and how we can disrupt Tom Brady in the pocket. When we look at the matchup here between the 49ers pass rush and Tom Brady, one of the things which I talked about so far, only 3 interceptions on the year. Now look, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers haven't exactly played the most tough schedule, but then again, neither have the 49ers. But looking at Tom Brady, only 3 picks. We got to force him to make mistakes, and that's really not an easy thing to do because look, he knows if he's under pressure, he'll take a sack. He'll throw the ball away. He's not going to force the ball unless he absolutely has to. Another big thing, though, is, and it's much easier said than done, look, we have a good pass rush, but to actually get to Brady, not an easy thing to do. all season long in 12 games so far, he's only been sacked 18 times. So that's basically 3 sacks every 2 games. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that is actually number 1 in the NFL. He's the least sacked quarterback. I think partly because the Buccaneers have so many short check down passes, but also he knows when to get rid of it. He doesn't make those mistakes. Now, looking at those short, quick check down passes I was watching the game, the Buccaneers and the Saints, and almost every play, it was like watching the Niners in some ways. It was just like within like 5-10 yards of the line of scrimmage. So I think the Niners, they're going to initially, I believe, do their bend, don't break defense. Don't be surprised if Tampa Bay moves the ball a little bit. Maybe we give up a couple of field goals, but then I think the defense will clamp down once we realize and identify exactly what Tampa Bay want to do. The great thing with the 49ers is we have really, really athletic players, guys who can really match up well with the Buccaneers receivers, the Buccaneers running backs, and their tight ends. Mike Evans, phenomenal player. Chris Godwin, phenomenal player. Julio Jones, he's still playing at a decent level. And then you look at their physical running backs. I think we have the athleticism to keep up with those guys. We're just going to have to match their physicality. And I think we're up for the challenge. I know guys like Greenlaw, Warner, Jimmy Ward, Hufanga, they're all going to be big time fired up to show the Buccaneers who's boss. Now, also, when we look at the 49ers pass rush, because at the end of the day, even if we don't sack Brady, even if we don't intercept him a few times, if we're forcing some sacks, right? If we're just forcing him to have to throw the ball away, sometimes throwing the ball away is just about as good as a sack. Let's be real. So a big thing is just getting some consistency. And I think we saw that last week against the Dolphins with getting Eric Armstead back. Armstead is a guy who can take on 2 blockers. He can penetrate into the backfield himself. A big thing that he's able to do as well is if he can get that penetration with his quick speed, quick agility, and athleticism, it will actually force Brady, and maybe a little bit out of the pocket, have to move around a little bit more. We know Brady, 45, was never the greatest athlete, so that allows guys like Bosa, Ebukam, Drake Jackson, Omenahu, all these guys to really get pressure on Brady and force him to have to throw the ball away. So to me, and the key in this game when it comes to the Niners defense, it's actually going to be the interior of the defensive line. Hassan Ridgeway going to be out for the season, but Kevin Givens, he's having a really good year so far. T.Y. McGill, of course, Eric Armstead. We just signed Marlon Davidson, I believe. So can these guys step up to the plate, make enough plays to allow the 49ers defense to even just have to force Brady to punt the ball? Now, when it comes to the last matchup that we're going to talk about, of course, we have to talk about Brock Purdy going up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers secondary. Now, when I look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, their secondary is pretty darn good. Jamel Dean, Carlton Davis, they have their 2 veterans at safety now that we talked about a little bit earlier. So it's going to be a matter of, look, we're going to have to out-athleticize them. I think I just made up a word, but we really just have to be incredibly athletic. I think this could be a game where you see maybe a few more passes to guys like Ray McLeod, Danny Gray than we've seen in the past. All the guys for Tampa Bay, very fundamentally sound in terms of athleticism, maybe not the best. So that's maybe where we use those other guys, try and get them the ball in space, and don't be surprised if we do take a couple of deep shots. Tampa Bay, like Miami when they came into the matchup, they're going to crowd the line of scrimmage. So we need to basically have these guys challenge them over the top, force Tampa Bay to move their linebackers, safeties, and DBs back a little bit, and that will then open up the run game too. Now, looking at Brock Purdy, what's he got to do? Well, basically, he's just got to do what he needs to do in terms of just get the ball out quickly to his playmakers. Like I'd mentioned, I do think we'll take a couple of deep shots, but ultimately it's going to be those quick passes to Debo, to Kittle, to Ayuk, all these guys, McCaffrey, of course, and then we have to be incredibly disciplined when it comes to our blocking assignments. So that's no ineligible man downfield, no holding. The big thing here, it's going to be we can't hurt ourselves when it comes to Brock Purdy. If we can have a decent to good run game going, not be penalized all that often, I think that really sets him up in good situations, and ultimately get the ball in the hands of your playmakers. It's as simple as that. So that's the thing. I thought those are my key matchup, guys. I really, really hope that you're interested, that you like what I had to talk about. Now I'm going to give you my prediction. And if anyone tuned in, I did a live show on Tuesday with my boy Niner Sickness. I did give my prediction. I'm going to stick to it. I'm going to have the 49ers winning 23-17 over the Buccaneers. It's going to be a relatively low scoring game. Could even be 20-17, but I'll stick with 23-17 49ers. Maybe we get a defensive touchdown or a special teams touchdown, but this is a big time matchup because now if the 49ers can move to 9-4, next Thursday there's a huge matchup at Seattle, and if we can beat the Buccaneers, you know Brock Purdy's going to have a lot of confidence going into that short week on the road in a hostile environment. But thank you very much, guys, for checking out the video. Do leave your thoughts in the comments. Whenever I do these preview videos, I want to hear what you guys think about the matchup. What are some of your keys to the game? What are some of the keys to victory? How do the 49ers beat the GOAT, Tom Brady, who's coming back home to the Bay Area? I want to hear what you guys have to say. But at the end of the day, guys, if you like the content, do consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. Like the video, and of course I will be going live on Sunday around 1 o'clock Pacific time, so about 25 minutes before the 49ers Buccaneers game. I expect to see everyone there. It's going to be a whole lot of fun. We're going to get loud. We're going to be proud of our 49ers, and I just want to say a huge thank you there. But guys, two things before I go. You know what they are. The butt counts. Then I'm going to catch you guys on the flip side.